Here in about probably about 2 or 3 weeks, I could probably start putting my cattle on the grass. And my distiller grains that I had ordered, the distiller grains are going to be here on Monday. I had to push the schedule a little bit, and they're going to be here on Monday. And so, but I mean, it's okay. I was talking about before I purchased the distiller grains for the first time, I was actually talking about the distiller grains and why am I using distiller grains. And I don't, from the information that I had collected before I had purchased the distiller grains, I was reading that distiller grains is not, I mean, it's a very good source of energy, but it should not be what you use as a gainer, from my understanding. Not you, I mean, but anybody. It's not a good idea to use distiller grains as a gainer. All right, distiller grains does have a lot of energy in it, but it also has a lot of protein, and it also has a lot of sulfur. And because of the sulfur, it's not a good idea, from the information that I have collected, to utilize distiller grains as a gainer. And in terms of a broader idea, in terms of a general idea, it is actually better to use corn as a gainer than it is to use distiller grains. And so that's why I feed my animals a mixture of distiller grains and corn. I don't just give them a full amount of distiller grains. I give them distiller grains and corn. And when I have grass, I would say that the grass is probably about it's been about probably a week and a half. Is the grass is probably about 10 days old. It's about 7 days old. And when it's about probably here in about 3 weeks, I could probably start putting the cattle on it. And when I put the cattle on it, they're going to get a lot of protein from the grass. Grass is a very, very, very good source of protein, but the amount of protein, I talk about in terms of the grass. Depending on the growth stage of the grass, depending on what stage of growth the grass is, the feed values of the grass will change, right? When you have a grass that is just starting to grow, and it's in its early stage of development, it's in its early stage of vegetative development, the protein and the energy values of the grass are going to be sky high. But as the grass grows, it will eventually enter a stage of development that I call early flowering, right? And how do you know when grass is in early flowering? For most grasses, what will happen is that they develop a flag leaf, right? I talk about this all the time, and when that grass develops a flag leaf, it will actually do something called bolting. And when it begins to bolt, it will begin to accumulate vegetative growth very rapidly. Right, and that's usually when that's usually an optimal time in terms of how much biomass is being accumulated by the field and the feed values of the grass to put animals on grass. Right, I talk about this. Must be the 50th time that I've said it. Right, I mean the 5,000th time that I've said it. And the information has not changed, right? And this is not this is not according to me and Billy Joe Bob. This is according to the information that I have personally collected, and also the information that I have found from people who actually know what they're doing. All right, and so it's like, how do you tell if your grass is in its early stage of it's in early flowering? How do you know it's making that transition from vegetative growth to flowering? It develops a flag leaf. When it develops a flag leaf, it will also begin to bolt. And when it begins to bolt, it will begin to accumulate biomass very rapidly. That grass, most grasses at that stage of development, okay, I'm going to talk about ryegrass and winter wheat. Forage Max winter wheat and Oregon something ryegrasses. Those are the two grasses that I have grown, and I've grown it on my soil, and they both grow very well. But the ryegrass, the ryegrass, it goes into flowering too soon. It goes from vegetative to flowering very soon, and so I didn't really like the ryegrass as much as I like the winter wheat. I like the winter wheat a lot more. And also, and I was talking about this, but when you have a real small calf, if you feed him something like a ryegrass, and the big problem, I just said this with ryegrass, is that it goes into flowering very soon. It goes from vegetative to flowering very soon. And when it goes into flowering, the seeds of the ryegrass are very small. And I've actually had an animal develop a mouth infection from chewing on ryegrass seed, because the ryegrass seed cut their mouth open and gave them an abscess. And so that's also something to think about. You don't really want to be if you have bigger animals, the chance of them cutting their mouth open on a piece of grass or on a grass seed is a lot lower than an animal that is a little baby calf that is developing teeth. If a little baby calf is developing teeth, their gums are still going to be exposed and they're not going to have all of their teeth. And as their teeth are coming in, if the ryegrass seed gets stuck in their teeth, or if it cuts their gum open, you end up with a large an abscess, a large abscess. And so, there are different things to consider, and for various reasons, there is an advantage to growing a ryegrass. And if I was going to grow a ryegrass, maybe I would look for more of like a delayed flowering type ryegrass. I know that there's a delayed flowering even for sorghum Sudan and stuff like that, and I would look for a different type of ryegrass. But that ryegrass that I had grown, that Oregon something, it's called Oregon something, that ryegrass, the cool thing about that ryegrass is that if you just throw the seed on the field, if you don't even have a grain drill, if you just throw it on the field, it will legitimately just germinate. I've actually had a ryegrass germinate on my trailer. Like I brought home some seed, and there are just little nooks and crannies in that trailer, just little ditches and stuff in the wood, and little pieces of little holes all over the trailer. And some ryegrass had gotten into those little holes, and they had just been sitting on top of the wood, and the seeds actually germinated while they were just on the trailer. And so that's one big advantage of growing ryegrass, is that it effectively germinates anywhere. If you just throw the seed on the field, it will germinate anywhere. So if you don't have a grain drill, you can grow ryegrass, right? I mean, you can still do it. I mean, but the big problem with ryegrass is that ryegrass, I've actually had an animal bloat to death eating ryegrass. I actually had one animal last year, she actually bloated to death eating ryegrass. All she ate was ryegrass. She got a little bit of grain, and she actually bloated to death. And so ryegrass, the feed values of the ryegrass are sky high, and it also enters flowering very early. And so the window of optimal consumption by the animal is very small. And for winter wheat, you get a large window to harvest that grass with your animals. Because me, I've already said that I don't use equipment to harvest my grass. My big idea is that I put my animals on grass to harvest the grass for me, and that saves me a lot of money, and it also makes me a lot of money because then I don't have to buy equipment. Right, I talk about my business strategy all the time, right? And it's also why I'm looking to get into the backgrounding business, so that I can capitalize on my skill set. Right, I may potentially be one of the best grass growers, crop growers on the entire planet. All right, I was talking about this yesterday, but in terms of reality, if we are going to talk about reality, the chances of anybody making it, okay, if we were in the entire U.S. economy, if we were in a room with everybody in the U.S., so you had 333.4 million people in a room, you would be looking for 1,500 to 15,000 people in that entire room. And there would only be about 1,500 to 15,000 of us that actually know how to make money like this. It's a very, 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 very small number of people. And I was actually thinking about this morning, but it doesn't matter what you're the best in the world at. If you're the best in the world at farming, it doesn't matter if you're the best in the world at basketball, if you're the best in the world at whatever it may be. It's all going to be about as equally as hard. It's about going to be as equally as difficult. It is probably going to be as difficult to become the best basketball player on the planet as it is to become the best farmer on the planet. It's going to be as difficult to become, the best at anything. And the only people, it's just about as hard to become the best at anything. I mean, it's just about as hard. And I talked about this in great detail, but, this is a very important detail. This is a very important detail. This might actually be the most successful farm on the entire planet. All right, one of the most successful cattle farms on the entire planet. And, and if you really think about it, it's like the success rate is almost 0%. I mean, you're not going to make it. I mean, nobody's going to make it. I mean, it doesn't matter what you do. And I was talking about this, but if we actually talk about in reality, if we actually take a look at the world for what it is, I mean, the chances of anybody succeeding to such a drastic point at anything are borderline 0%. A lot of, and I talked about this and I was like, this is going to sound horrible, but I'm just going to say it because at the end of the day, I make so much money running cattle that I can effectively do anything that I want. And I know that, and it's most of you, that completely goes over your head. You don't understand what that looks like. And, you know, it's like, if you want to take a look at how much money I am generating, even, you know, and I was talking about this over the last 2 days, but, you know, let's say it takes me 1 hour to make this video. In that 1 hour that I had made this video, I will have generated myself about $1,100. All right, I make money in my sleep. If I fall asleep and I sleep for 8 hours, by the time I wake up, I have effectively made myself about $9,000 or $10,000. And it's like, you know, and it's like, how did I do that? Well, I surrounded myself with tax-deductible assets that are appreciating profitably. That's how I did it. All right, that's the big idea. That's how I did it, right? And you know, and when I make these videos, and I was talking about this, but when I make these videos, I'm not bragging, right? You know, there was no part, you know, because me, it's like, you know, I'm just gonna be completely sincerely honest with myself. And it took me so long to make it. I mean, this is my 15th year doing it. I didn't even get paid until about my 13th or 14th year. And when I finally made it, I didn't feel like this, oh my God, now's my chance. And because here's another way to, look at it in terms of a universal karma. Like, if I was like, oh my God, I finally made it, and now I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna go and flex on my haters, right? And I'm gonna go and buy myself a Lamborghini, and I'm gonna go and buy myself a Rolex, and I'm gonna, everywhere that I go, I want everybody to know that I'm successful. If I did that, I would maybe I could do that for 5 years, but after about 5 years, I would effectively be out of money, right? 2 to 5 years, and God knows it, and I know it. When I made that massive sum of money, I still live in my trailer. I didn't go and buy myself a new car. I didn't go and buy myself a bigger home or anything. Like, I didn't improve my living standards or anything. I still live in my trailer. All right, and I took the money that I made, and I'm actually growing my business with it. God knows it, I know it, my mama knows it. I legitimately took the money that I made and I grew my business. So that's what I did with the money that I made. I didn't go, oh my God, now it's my chance. Now I can go and buy myself a Corvette. Now I can go and buy myself a Lamborghini. Now I can go and buy myself a bigger house. Now I can go and just buy myself all sorts of doodads. I didn't do that. I took my money and I'm growing my business. And it's like, if you, and we'll talk about, I'll do a little bit of a recap, a summary of what we've been talking about over the last about a week or so. And so, I was talking about, let's say you found an asset, right? You found an asset, it's equitable, you got it, you got a good deal, ran on it, you ran the numbers, and you're cash flow positive on the whole thing, and you want to go and you want to start a business. You found a way to make a large sum of money. You figured, you found a business, you ran the numbers, you checked everything 50,000 times, you put yourself at risk for about $1,000 a month, and in the long term, you anticipate that, right now, maybe you're making an 8% return on your asset. Maybe you're making an 8% return on your asset, but if you calculate it out for the next 3 or 4 years, you can actually increase your return to 14%, and you've come up with a realistic strategy. And it's like, if you think about it like that, you would be risking $500,000. You would risk $500,000 to make yourself about 50 grand, about 50, 60 grand. And if you took a loan for $500,000 and you bought yourself a piece of real estate, I already told you what my numbers are. I financed the whole thing. I purchased a piece of real estate that was 300 grand, and that 300 grand, I financed the down payment on a 30-year payment for 10% interest, 9.75% interest, and then I financed the rest of it on a 20-year term. And if you, depending on what banks you go to, especially if you're going to buy yourself like a fourplex, if you're going to buy yourself a residential real estate, a fourplex, you're more realistically going to talk about a 30-year term. You're talking about a 30-year loan most of the time. And so even on a 20-year term, on a 20-year loan, financing the whole thing, I financed the whole thing, and I financed $305,000. And those were my lending terms, and I went to a commercial bank, and what my monthly payment is about $2,450 a month. If you went and got a loan for about $500,000 right now, and you put it on a 30-year term, and it was a residential real estate like a fourplex, I mean, you would probably pay about $4,000 or $5,000 a month for it. And if you paid $4,000 or $5,000, let's say you paid, it's probably gonna be about $4,000, right? I mean, because if you increase the lending time from 20 years to 30 years, I mean, that would effectively drop your price per month by about a third, right? I mean, so what we're talking about right now is about $1,800, and then you increase that by 30% to go from 300,000 to 500,000. Then I mean, what we're talking about effectively is about about $4,000 a month. And let's say you buy a piece of real estate, it's a threeplex or whatever, and you pay half a duplex or whatever, and you pay $500,000 for it, and you go over there and you take a look at it and you say, well, with the rates being so high, and it's like you're gonna have to give me a discount on the listing price or whatever, and then you talk to the renters or whatever, and you find it's a good solid investment, and you pay $4,000 a month for it. And if you pay $4,000 a month for it, then you get $5,000 back, right? And you also you get $4,500 back or whatever it may be, right? You get an extra $500 a month of cash, or $1,000 a month of cash, but then you're also retaining about $1,000 $1,500 a month in the equity of the property. And then you went and you talk to your accountant. And you ask them, here are my numbers. Here are my tax forms. How much income tax do I owe? And they will tell you. They'll run your numbers and they will tell you you owe this much in taxes. And then you ask them, well, I'm looking to buy this asset, and I'm gonna get tax deductions for it. I want to know what my income, I want to know what my taxes will look like after I purchase this asset. What kind of tax deductions, what kind of tax benefits am I gonna get? And they'll say, oh well, if you actually go and you purchase this asset, then you can deduct you can depreciate the building on your taxes. You can deduct the interest on your loan. You can deduct the closing costs, whatever it may be. They will tell you, and if you do that, then you can actually save yourself whatever, $8,000 on your income taxes this year, right? And then you run all the numbers. Well, if the property is producing $500 a month, and I save myself $500 a month in taxes, and I save myself $1,000 in equity, then that's effectively you are making yourself an extra about $24,000 a year. And then you say, well, if I'm making myself an extra, and then you do whatever, you get a deduction on the listing price. And so, if you get a deduction on the listing price, let's say you make an extra, whatever, $3,000 a month, and you get $36,000 a month or whatever, whatever it may be, $30,000 a year. And then you take a look at it and you make a realistic plan for yourself, and you say, I can increase the appraisal value of the building, or this home is in a good area, and the area is going up in value, and I can increase the rents on my property. And if I do that by 2% a year, then you can effectively raise your net return by about 2% a year. And if you're starting off making about 8%, then it will take you 3 years to raise your net return to 14%. Right? Boom, congratulations. And and it's like, if you buy a home in a good area, that home is probably going to go up in value, right? I mean, granted that you're not buying a home in an area that is extremely inflated. Like, if you're going to go and buy a home in like Miami or something, but like if I was going to use Dallas as an example, like, even if the economy tanks, we're probably not going to lose more than 10% of our home values. All right, I mean, this is not going to happen. And just because home values might not go down because of the economy, but you can still work a better deal. You can still get a better deal on your investment. You can ask for a reduction in the listing price. Maybe you can get better terms on it, etc., etc. The big idea right now is that you can work a good deal. You can make a deal with somebody. I actually managed to get a 10% deduction on the listing price for my property as well. The one that I'm buying, I got a 10% deduction. I reduced it from $370 to $335. I actually reduced it from $370 to $330. So I got a $40,000 deduction on the listing price, and so that is something that I actually did. All right, I'm not consulting you. I'm telling you that is what I did. I actually managed to get a $40,000 discount on the property that I'm buying. And so And so, I did that, and with the high interest rate environment, in terms of like a overall look at the economy, I mean, the home prices might not be going down on the Case-Shiller, right? If you go on the internet and look up Case-Shiller, Case-Shiller, Case-Shiller home price index, it will actually tell you what about how the housing market is doing across the country, and you could even look it up for your specific city. And so it will actually tell you your home prices are steady, home prices are going up, home prices are going down, etc., etc. There's a lot of ways I've already talked about real estate, but real estate is a massive market. There are a lot of people in the real estate market that know what they're doing, and if you ask these people, there's a way, you can appraise anything in terms of real estate. I mean, there's somebody who will, professionally tell you what your land or what your whatever is worth. All right, real estate is a massive market. I've talked about massive markets. When you're looking for something that is equitable, you're looking for a massive market. You are looking for the biggest market that you can find. You don't want to be in a situation where you're collecting Pokemon cards thinking that you're going to make a lot of money. All right, because Pokemon cards, even if your Pokemon cards are worth a lot of money, it's going to be very difficult to find somebody who is going to buy them. That's the difficult part. No one's going to lend you. You can't take your Pokemon cards to the bank and have them open a line of credit against it. It's probably not going to happen. All right, you want a solid asset. You want good assets, and you want a very large market. Real estate is a good example. A successful business, very good example. I've already talked about, and I actually wanted to talk about this. I was talking about this earlier in the week. But if you want to start a business, how did I start my business? When I started my business, I went on the internet and I typed in, how do I start a business in Texas, right? Because I'm in Texas, and it gave me these things, and it's like you have to file for a whatever with your Secretary of State. So I went on the website, I called the Secretary of State, and I said, I want to file an LLC. They sent me a link to my email, and I clicked on the link, and I did the instructions in the link, and it took me about 5 minutes, and I filed my LLC. I took that LLC paperwork, the Secretary of State, I paid like $300 for it. The Secretary of State sent me some forms. I took those forms to the bank, and when I went to the bank, I opened a business account, and anytime that I did anything with my business, I put the money into my business account, and I took the money out of my business account if I needed to buy something, right, etc., etc. And something that I've done right now that it really, I think it's going to open up a lot of opportunities for me, is that I'm paying a bookkeeper. I'm paying an accountant to keep track of my books so that I don't have to do it anymore, and that's like a big weight lifted off my shoulders, because now I don't have to sit here and think about, how much do I owe in taxes, how many cattle should I buy, what am I going to owe in taxes at the end of the year, what do I think I'm going to owe in tax, all of that thought energy, because I'm not even good at math. All right, I'm not good at math. I mean, it takes a massive amount of, it takes a massive amount of my time and my effort to keep track of my books. All right, it keeps a lot of time, and it takes a lot of effort for me to keep track of my books. And so if I just pay a bookkeeper, then I don't have to do that anymore. I can just focus on growing my business. And so, and so that's something that I did that I believe is going to be of big benefit to me. I'm paying a bookkeeper. And so, they'll tell me what I owe and what I need to do, etc., etc. And they're also a lawyer. They're also a tax lawyer, so that's very good. And so, so that's how to start a business, right? You found a way to make money. You open a business account, and then you got to make sure you keep track of the books. Accounting is very important. And that's also why I decided to hire an accountant, was because it's very important. And yesterday I was gonna talk about this, and I completely forgot. But one of the animals, the animal with the swollen jaw, I'm pretty sure that she's got some kind of, some kind of a sinus infection, because that swelling in her jaw, when I was at the vet, that swelling in her jaw is actually pushing up against her eye, and it's causing like this fluid to come out of her eye. It's not like tears. It's like a gunk fluid. And I asked the doctor what that was, and he said that it's probably from the infection pushing up against her eye. And yesterday, I took a look at her, and she looks like she has a sinus infection. Like when you see a person, when you see a human being that has a sinus infection, they got like nasty gunk coming out of their nose. It's almost go on YouTube right now and look up a sinus infection. Go look it up, and you'll know what I'm talking about. It's like this massive amount of gunk coming out of their nose. It's like a massive amount of gunk. And I was like, that's what she looks like she has. And so I gave her another shot of antibiotics yesterday. And I think it's working, because yesterday morning, it looked like she had a sinus infection. She was like just spewing out like gunk out of her nose. I mean, it was just flowing out of her nose on it constantly. And I was like, oh, well, that's not good. And she stopped eating. She actually stopped eating yesterday morning. And so I went ahead and I gave her another shot of antibiotics. And starting about last night, she actually started eating again. She started eating again, and she's eating food, and she's eating food this morning too. And so I think she has a sinus infection. And so I gave her another shot of antibiotics, and I think it worked. I'm gonna keep an eye on her. And oh yeah, I was going to talk about this in terms of the business, but it's like, why do you want to make sure that you keep track of your books, and you start a business and you open an account, etc., etc. And if you this is not legal advice, but this is not legal advice. Okay, this is not legal advice. If you really want legal advice, go and ask your tax person, go and ask your tax lawyer, go and ask a lawyer, a business lawyer, I don't know, go and ask a lawyer. If you legitimately want tax, or if you legitimately want legal advice, go and ask a lawyer. I'm not giving you legal advice. There are legal benefits to owning a business. All right, you get legal protection. You can do various things to protect your assets. Even if you bankrupt on your business, you're not going to lose everything. You'll just lose your assets in the business. You're legally protected. Even if you bankrupt, you're legally protected. Should you abuse the system? No, you should not. Don't sell your soul to the devil. It never works. All right. And so there are legal protections for owning a business. All right, you do get legal benefits for owning a business. And also, I talked about this, but if you have a business that is producing a positive return, if it's making money, that business is equitable. All right, I talk about this. This must be the 100th time I've said it, but if you have a business that is making a positive return, it is equitable, and that equity evaluation is going to be a multiple of the earnings. All right, and if you have a business that is equitable, even if you don't sell the business, you can use that equity evaluation of the business to get yourself a business line of credit. And I'm going to ask my tax lawyer about this. This is not legal advice. This is from my understanding. If I have a business line of credit and I purchase assets for my business with that business line of credit, and I tie those assets to my business, then even if I completely bankrupt on that business line of credit, if I lose everything, if I legitimately purchase like 400 cattle with that business line of credit, and I lose all 400 animals, then I bankrupt, then I still do not lose like my other assets. I do not lose anything outside of the LLC. And so, that's something that I'm going to talk to my accountant about. That's the one thing I want to talk to my accountant about: legal protection from bankruptcy. Am I going to lose my other assets, etc., etc. And so, I had a list of things. But I think, I'm growing grass, and when it comes to doing anything, I was speaking about this, but when it comes to doing anything in terms of becoming the best in the world, it's going to be difficult no matter what you do. All right, it doesn't matter what you do. I've already said, I want to talk about this, the whole best in the world thing. It doesn't really even matter if you don't become the best in the world, as long as you become, very good. Realistically, after a certain point, it doesn't matter. And if you think about it, in terms of, if you really think about it, if you managed to even do 10% of what I was doing, if you managed to do 10%, you would still be generating yourself borderline $500,000 to $1 million a year. All right, and so it's still effectively so much money that you can do anything that you want. And I've talked about this, and the whole idea of wealth disparity. It's like, you have to understand that we live in a world where altruism does not work, all right? You have to take a look at reality for what it is. The average person is not a good person. There are plenty of people who will steal even $10. They will, people will, desperation is not a good reason to start a business. Effectively, nobody cares. If you don't make a large sum of money, you should not be starting a business. If you're not going to make a large sum of money, you should not start a business. You should just go and buy one, right? I mean, and if you want a real, chances are you're not even going to get to the 10% mark. It doesn't even, you're not even going to get to the 10% mark. Most people don't even get to the 10% mark. And here's another way to look at it. If you actually asked other cattlemen about my business, if I went and I talked to another cattleman about my business, someone who actually knew what they were doing, they would be impressed. They would be like, man, you actually go to the sale barn by yourself, buy your cattle one at a time, bring them home and raise them and turn them into feeder cattle. Like, I'm actually surprised that you didn't bankrupt. I'm surprised that you didn't develop a drinking problem. I'm surprised that you even make money. Most people will legitimately, you probably do not understand. Making it, most people, the average, in terms of like 99.9999% of the population of the earth does not even make it to the 10% mark at farming like this. They don't. If you actually, if I went and talked to a cattleman who actually knew what they were doing, and I was talking to them about my business, they would be very impressed. It's like, man, you actually go to the sale barn by yourself, buy your cattle one at a time, bring them home, raise them yourself, turn them into feeder cattle, and it's like you've actually managed to do it and make money. And you're a first generation farmer. That's actually incredible, right? I mean, your success rate was borderline 0%, right? I mean, we're not talking about rental real estate. We're talking about somebody legitimately teaching themselves how to farm and then starting their own farming business, going to the sale barn by themselves, purchasing cattle by themselves, bringing them home, raising them, and turning them into commercial feeder animals. The success rate is almost 0%. You're not going to understand this if you're watching my video. Chances are you're not going to understand this unless you actually know what you're doing. And the average person does not even make it to the 10% mark. A majority of people, not even average people, a majority of people don't ever even make it to the 10% mark. All right, I mean, it's like this is something that's probably completely gone over your head. You don't understand. All right, and now you do. All right, and my whole big thing about this is when I present these videos, and because it's like me, I make so much money, I can do anything that I want, short of being an idiot, short of like selling my soul to the devil, short of like doing a massive amount of drugs, or going and getting myself 10 girlfriends, or gambling a bunch of money, or drinking a bunch of alcohol. I can effectively do anything. And if I want to make more money, I'm not going to become a YouTuber, right? I've already talked about this. If I really want to make more money, I'll just run more cattle. All right, and I make so much money, I can effectively do anything that I want, anything. And a lot of you don't understand what that looks like. You have, and I want to give you my perspective, because if I give my perspective to you, it will become a part of your universe. And then you will go, oh, like I actually know this guy who actually, he's the only one that, and, he legitimately makes so much money that he can do whatever he wants. And, he does it by just accumulating assets, right? I just accumulate tax deductible assets. Even right now when I'm making this video, I am making like almost borderline $1,100 an hour. All right. And it's like, and if I want to make more money, I'll just run more cattle. I'll just capitalize on my skill set. All right, and it's like, this is what he does, right? I mean, he just, he accumulates tax deductible assets, and he is, he capitalizes on a skill set, and the reason that he makes so much money on this skill set is because he is legitimately borderline, potentially a candidate for being the best farmer on the entire planet that the world has ever seen. Most people have never seen anybody do anything even remotely close to this. And it's like, and if you're in a situation where you're like, I fell out of heaven a 7 and my life's a mystical, magical journey, and you're gonna, and it's like when I see people, like I don't save people. All right, and I don't save people. If that is legitimately you, then go and be poor by yourself. All right, go and either turn yourself around or die alone. All right, I mean, because no, you did not fall out of heaven a 7. You're not going to make it to this point unless you put in a massive amount of effort. a massive amount of effort, you will never make it to this point. A majority of people don't even get to the 10% mark. And if you want to think about it in terms of a monetary figure, the 10% mark is $500,000 to $1 million a year. That's what the 10% mark is. Most people, it doesn't matter what you do, you're not going to generate $500,000 to $1 million a year in your entire life. You will never get to the 10% mark, right? Even by the time you've seen someone like me, it's already too late. I'm telling you exactly how to accumulate assets, what kind of assets to, and I'm not going to tell you, I was thinking about it, but I'm not going to tell anybody what to think. You're free to think whatever you want. All right, and me too, right? Like if I, it's for everybody. You can think whatever you want. I'm just gonna say I did it this way. I did it like this, and I made it to a success level where I became a top 0.00001 percentile to top 0.00001 percentile of the entire U.S. economy in the year 2024. And I managed to do it by starting my own business, etc., accumulating these assets. This is exactly how I did it. And that's how I did it, all right? And, I'm not going to tell anybody what to think. You can think whatever you want. And that goes the same for me, right? And so, and if I want to sit here and, and I want to think that, if you want to think whatever you want, you can. And I'm just going to tell you what I think about, right? I mean, there is no benefit to being poor. If you're going to consciously put in effort to be poor, if you're going to consciously decide that you're going to make choices to keep yourself poor, then you might as well just consciously decide to not be poor. All right, why not? It takes the same amount of effort. It's like if you're going to consciously choose to do things that keep you poor or that are going to make you poor, you might as well just consciously choose to do things that are not going to make you poor, right? I mean, accumulate assets, accumulate good assets that are making a positive return. When you take a look at the returns, you have an idea of how you are going to appreciate these assets profitably in the future. And if you do that, and you don't sell your soul to the devil and don't act like an idiot, and you go and be, do what is required for you to be successful, then you can effectively do anything that you want. All right, I mean that's the big idea, and I'm not saying I'm a saint. I've already said that there is no such thing as a like when we're going to talk about good people, who are we talking about, right? I mean, I'm not a saint. I'm not coming off as a saint. I'm telling you that I'm just as much of a sinner as anybody else. All right, I mean everybody's a sinner in the eyes of God, right? And so it's just more important that you find your peace with God in your moment of life, right? And so. Me, I'm not saying I'm a saint. I made my peace with God about the whole idea. I understand that I generate a massive amount of money. I understand that. All right, and but at the end of the day, I mean, it's like you also got to think about that. If we don't farm, people are going to starve to death. All right, and so I made my peace with God about it. I'm not asking for anybody's opinion. If anything, that's what it is for me. I find my peace with God about it, and then I just move forward. All right, and I generate a massive amount of money, and this is how I did it. All right, I just accumulated tax deductible assets. That's the bigger idea. That's the big idea. I accumulated tax deductible assets that I can knowledgeably appreciate, and when I did that, I effectively just turned myself into a money printing machine. All right, I've effectively turned. I talk about this in terms of an idea, but if you understand how to knowledgeably appreciate an asset profitably, you effectively can print your own money. That's the big idea. It's like, oh, well, if I have this asset, I can make a 14% return on it. You're effectively printing yourself 14%. You're just printing it for yourself. You're doing it by, offering the market a skill, something. And you're effectively just printing your own money. That's the big idea. It's like learning how to appreciate assets profitably. Understand that there are things that are as valuable as money that are not money, but they are, have a monetary value to them. And when you appreciate these monetary things profitably, you can effectively print your own money. All right, that's the big idea. And when you're, when you're looking at something like this, when I give you my honest perspective, and I'm not being malicious, I'm not leading you astray, I'm not leading you the wrong way. I'm not looking to, cause you to fail. I'm giving you the best information that I sincerely can. But at the end of the day, most of you are beyond saving. You're a massive pile of problems. You're probably never gonna make it, even to the 10% mark. If you turned on a dime, it would be a miracle, and I would be very happy for you. I would be very happy that you made it. I've already talked about the big idea of success. Just because I'm massively successful does not mean I took the chance away from other people. You can be successful too, and chances are you are more likely to be successful if you surround yourself with successful people. All right, chances are your chances of succeeding go up drastically if you surround yourself with successful people. All right, and and that's it for me today, YouTube. Y'all have a good one.